record to. So, Robin, thank you for joining us today, or joining me anyway, and anyone else that looks at this in the future. The point of our collaboration on this is the fact that we both know that on some level, pain is something we can have more control over. It can be an option. And I wanted you to explain the definition between acute and chronic pain. So I thought we'd start there, because I don't think people even in a lot of instances have that information, or perhaps are aware of that, but haven't really embodied what that means. And then I will give some feedback about that, and we'll just have a kind of open discussion. That takes 20 minutes, half an hour. So tell us your definition of pain. And in fact, introduce yourself, because everybody knows who I am. They don't know who you are.
Well, thanks, Claire. Well, my name's Robin Ferrier, and I'm a rogue Scotsman from up north who's travelled the world and found himself in Eastbourne. And I've had lots of different careers over my life, but I find myself in the privileged position now of helping people through being a hypnotherapist in terms of I help people by putting them in trance initially to find the source of their pain, and pain being physical or emotional. And so that has led me to meet up with Claire and to discuss this whole concept of pain, because I went through a process of visiting a hospital recently where I spent a night there, and it was quite life transforming. I went in there to have an operation at short notice, and my operation went fine, and I didn't experience any significant pain. I was a lucky boy. But I also had the benefit of my own knowledge, my own ability to control my feelings and emotions. And so I was prepared for whatever was to come. Whereas anybody else who went in there went in absolutely terrified, uncertain, unsure, and tense. And during the night, when I was trying to get some sleep, albeit I was in really no pain, I could hear the suffering of everybody else, and I could hear the fear in their voice, and particularly the old folk who really were terribly uncertain of what was going on, why it was happening, and where all this was going to end up. So back to the concept of acute pain and chronic pain. And what I was experiencing at that moment was very minimal acute pain. And acute pain comes when you've done some damage to your flesh or an organ or something like that, and you instantly go, ouch, that hurts. That's acute pain. And acute pain really lasts as long as that injury lasts. But injuries, hopefully, in the human body don't last for very long, and they get repaired one way, shape, or form. And so chronic pain should generally, acute pain should give up after about 2 months, because that's usually as long as it takes for most things to be repaired.
Can I just ask, would you say then that could apply to heartache or heartbreak? Because when you get your heart broken, especially if you weren't anticipating it, then it's an acute pain because it feels, or any kind of shock. Like, you could buy that, couldn't you? Because then after about 2 months, you should be feeling slightly better.
Yes. I think if you went to an NHS hospital and told them you were suffering from heartache, they would probably show you to the nearest therapist. Unfortunately, that's the kind of thing that happens. And doctors don't really deal with the mental aspect of pain. But I know exactly what you mean by heartache. And so, unfortunately, I don't think the definitions apply quite as literally as they do with, shall we say, physically diagnosed damage to the body.
I don't know if I agree with that, Robin, because if I think about it, acute pain, heartache, shock, anything where somebody suffers some kind of loss, then if they process that properly went through the emotional processing, they allowed the tears, they recognized all the emotions, etc. They should, the majority of the work, if it's done at the time as opposed to parked, which a lot of our culture likes to park pain, it's like something we can put off, especially emotional pain, and we'll deal with it later because now's not the time. Then one could argue that in the version, your definition of acute pain, that should be lessening after 2 months before it turns into chronic pain, which is when you haven't dealt with it, you've shelved it, and it's it's festering. So I'm just putting that out there.
That's fine. Well, to continue on with these definitions, chronic pain is anything that really lasts after 2 months. And there, of course, are maladies and physical ailments which they do take time to heal. And so therefore, the definition of chronic and acute is a generalization. But with regards to chronic pain, usually what we find is that there is a resolution shortly after 2 months. But sometimes there's not. And then that's when you have to ask yourself, what's going on here? And neuroscientists have discovered that sometimes when the human body experiences pain, it gets addicted to it. It's a perverse twist that it gets used to it. It becomes the new normal. And so when the initial injury is, shall we say, repaired physically, the subconscious mind doesn't acknowledge that that repair has been completed and continues to provide you with pain. Now, if I can explain a little bit more about the purpose of pain, pain initially is there in the acute form to say, hey, something bad's just happened, you need to fix it. Or whatever you're doing right now, stop it because it hurts and it's not helping you. So that's good pain because that stops you doing dumb stuff. And it also helps you to get yourself fixed when you need to be fixed. So pain has a real useful purpose. But then it becomes sometimes chronic, and that's pointless, useless pain. And that's a real burden for people because they don't know how to switch it off. Most people don't know that they can. So they will take drugs, they'll take all sorts of things, alcohol, just to numb the pain. And what's going on is, as I said earlier, the brain has failed to reset. What we want to do is a factory reset. You get a button and you press reset and everything goes back to normal. And so therefore, that's how I work using hypnotherapy to find that press to reset button. And we have them. We all have them. It just lies within our subconscious. But just to go back a little bit with regards to chronic pain, we have so many things that create chronic pain in and above, or sorry, over and above the initial physical injury. And one of them is tension and stress. And I'm sure you've seen it in your daily life that so many people will present you with a physical ailment. And you know full well that that ailment has come because that person is creating a battle within their own body, using their mind. And that's a terrible thing to see because it's not actually necessary, but people don't know they're doing it. And it's called psychosomatic disorder.
And I think that I was thinking about this today when I do another job where I'm an exam invigilator. So I get a couple of hours to stand around and literally watch people and think. And I was thinking about this and the fact that, was it to do with our culture that we spent so much time not in our bodies, but in our minds, and give our minds so much power to the detriment of our physical bodies? So the mind kind of drives our kind of being, as it were, not the spirit, not the body. And actually that imbalance has created all of this kind of pain, and that perhaps one of the reasons the body carries on hurting after it's actually physically repaired is because it's pointing clearly to the fact that there is underlying issues that haven't been addressed, that it wants you to address, i.e. spend more time in me, respect me a little better. You know, it can be trauma we know that that gets locked in the body when a traumatic experience happens. If you don't process it, the body just shelves. Is where I go back to that heartbreak earlier. So I would say, hypnotherapy in terms of accessing that, if you've got to the point where you can't even tell where you went wrong because it's so out of our culture, you're not sure why that kind of thing goes on. And that fight you were talking about, I see that a lot when I do people's charts, that kind of, you know, what's driving them, what they should be doing, what they actually are doing, and that disparity. And then the stress that's created from the disparity. And then, you know, it's things like fibromyalgia as well. So many people suffer from that.
Indeed.
The doctors say to them, oh, we can't tell you why you've got this. And it's like, yes, because you're so not listening to your body. Your body has had enough. You've got emotional processing, and you've got kind of, you know, toxin management.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely right, Claire. And if I can differentiate a little bit from what we were talking about earlier, I was initially talking about where you have a genuine physical injury and it doesn't reset after it's been fixed, if you see what I mean. The physical aspect of it,
like losing a limb or something like that, don't you?
That's right. Or just literally skinning your knee, you know, it creates a scab, and then a few days later the scab falls off, and you know the pain goes after a day, and within 5 days it's all forgotten about. And that's definitely one aspect of pain and chronic pain. And so theoretically then you would still feel the pain of the cut on your knee after the cut itself had been repaired. But what we're also talking about is the nature of our culture right now, whereby people endure constant stress, constant emotional pain. And so a lot of what we do is driven by our subconscious mind. And by the very definition of being subconscious, we're not aware of it.
Yeah.
Lots of things go on deep down within us that we just have no idea what's happening there. All we know is that we have some ailment and we don't know where it came from, but we just wish it would hurry up and get lost. So fibromyalgia, psoriasis, and all sorts of things to do with the skin, internal organs, problems of the digestive tract, irritable bowel syndrome, things like that. And if we took it back, we would find that there was a whole bunch of reasons within the subconscious mind that the subconscious itself had created this ailment because it thought that it was doing something to help us. It's perverse, but our subconscious is not a logical thinking process. It's an emotional process. And therefore, it has three options. It'll try and protect us from something. It'll try and maybe push us forward in life because somehow we feel unseen or unheard. Or, and this is an interesting one because people suffer from guilt and feelings of culpability, sometimes we want to punish ourselves deep down. So those are three good reasons why our subconscious could be sabotaging us internally without us knowing. And so many of these things that we call chronic pain, and I'm including arthritis in all of this. So there are so many things that are afflicted just by the way we think and the way we feel. And I find it fascinating.
Oh, I do too, Robin, completely, because this reaches over into that kind of whole mind over matter universe, matter over mind. What's the distinction? All this untapped potential within our own kind of, you know, minds once we kind of understand how it all fits together. And then, you know,
Sure.
the limitlessness of self-healing and being able to kind of move beyond these points. And that's why in the blurb about this, I said it's kind of like a choice. It's like you have a choice. You don't have to sit there riddled with arthritis, or if you have a major operation and you need some support afterwards, you come and get some support from Robin, etc., around this, because you don't want to be feeling phantom limb pain if you've had something removed.
Yeah.
You know, you need come to me for spiritual counseling, you need to understand what is it that's actually represented by
Yes.
the physical accident or surgery that you've had, because accidents can seem completely and utterly just happened to me. It just, I don't know why it happened. It just happened. I just fell over, this happened, but it's not. Nothing is really happening just for no reason.
Sure.
Everything has a purpose and a point, and it's about looking at life through that lens and thinking, right,
Yes.
okay, what's going on here? And what's the
Well,
deeper.
I can't agree with you more, but one point I'd like to make is that so many people now feel powerless,
Yes.
victims, unable to control pretty much anything in their life. And our subconscious is no different. It wants to control things that are going on in your life that your conscious mind is telling it, I don't like this. So it will do whatever it thinks is appropriate, and it's usually not appropriate, to try and get you out of that situation that you are telling it that you are in. So, for example, let's say that you're driving to work one morning and you hate the traffic. You know, it's a 2 or 3 mile tailback, and you just think, oh God, this is killing me. Well, of course, what happens is that your subconscious hears that thought, uh-oh, somebody's trying to kill me. Wow, I better do something about this. And it happens every day at the same time, must be to do with the traffic. So let's get this person out of the traffic. What would be the easiest way for me to do that? Well, I tell you what, let's make him sick. Give him an ulcer. That way he doesn't have to drive to work. So he doesn't have to kill himself. And what it doesn't do is think about implications and rationality. It just is a simple answer to a simple thought based on the words, this is killing me. So be careful what you say to yourself. It's powerful, it really is. And so what we're trying to do with hypnotherapy is to get deep within the subconscious and find out, what is it that your subconscious thinks is going on? And on that basis, what does it think it's doing to help you? And then to say, hang on, mate, you're doing a great job here looking after whoever, but did you realize that you're actually doing quite the opposite of what you'd hoped to do? And subconscious being a fairly simple soul, no, I didn't know that. And so you can negotiate with it. You can either say, well, look, thanks very much for all you've done. You've done a great job of looking after me so far, but would you be so kind as to just buzz off? Now, sometimes you see that works, but sometimes it doesn't, because the thing is, your subconscious mind is a simple animal, as I say, and it's kind of used to its job. It doesn't like to just give up and resign overnight. Plus, it still feels that it has a role, it has a job to do. And so, what we can find to do there is to give it another job, write a new CV for it, and give it a job which is going to do something much more productive and helpful than create an ulcer. Something like being a mentor or a praiser, or being a best friend to give you help when you need it and to give you positive thoughts rather than negative ones. Sounds a little bit like mind games, doesn't it? But it's just a different way of looking at the same thing and not having your own little internal assassin shoot you in the foot. And it happens to all of us. We just don't realize it.
Well, it's programmed, isn't it, through birth, basically from birth up. That's when the subconscious is programming. And it's, like you said, it's incredibly black and white. It's like, right, shut you down, right, you can go now. And you know, in psychic world or spiritual world, we call this the shadow self. It's basically the sole intention is to preserve you, but actually in its preservation, as you said, it can go a step too far and actually inhibit you as opposed to support you to grow. And so it's about being able to establish what's really going on then. Is the negative voice in your head telling you not to do this because it legitimately knows you shouldn't be doing this? Or is it doing it because it's a limiting belief that you've been programmed at some earlier stage that's actually preventing you from moving forward into success?
It legitimately believes it on the basis that you've created the belief.
Exactly. And that's why the subconscious rules 95% of your life, and or 80%, and your conscious mind is only 20, isn't it, or less than that. So it doesn't matter how wise your conscious mind is. If your subconscious is like, you know, programmed in a negative way, it's very, very difficult to change that. And you have to do all these kind of routines, don't you, with positive affirmation and things like that. And people go, oh, what's that? Well, that's what that is. Positive, you know, reprogramming this very black and white center part of your brain. But I can't remember what I was going to say, but it was worth saying, and now it's gone.
It's quite all right. Well,
shut me down. It's like, shut up, Claire.
I just wanted to throw in a little quotation that I love to tell people, which is this. It's a quotation from a bust on a statue, I think, in the Royal College of Medicine, from a guy who was a surgeon called Sir Henry Maudsley, which is that any feeling or emotion that has no vent in tears causes other organs to weep. And so that means that if you can't express your emotions, then something's going to give, something's going to break, because your subconscious mind is dealing with a whole lot of the brown proverbial stuff, and it doesn't know what to do with it.
Absolutely.
So it's trying to give you a message to say, would you please fix this? And the only way it can do it is by sending a message through your body, which is pain. And that could be psoriasis, fibromyalgia, arthritis, any, list of these things.
Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, all of these things, heart problems, all of that. It relates to which chakra. So it's like where that you then map it against the chakras, and that helps you to identify, well, you wouldn't, I what the emotions are behind it, like the organs, like which organs are hurting. So if it's digestive, then it's likely to do with the salar and the solar plexus. And that's basically saying, right, that's to do with your external relationships with the outside world, your finances, your sense of worth, all of that. So that's where you haven't basically put enough kind of emphasis, time, emotion, etc. So it's the body is a map, isn't it? And the best way we can be is imagining ourselves as an electrical kind of circuit, that if you don't allow the electricity to come and flow through and from you and to you, then things get blocked and start misfiring and get cancer.
Yeah, I can't say it plainer than that. No. And it's so sad that so many people don't know about this. I mean, here's the thing. At the moment, I'm detecting mental health fatigue. And by that, I mean people, I think, in some parts of society are getting sick, fed up of hearing people talk about their mental health. And I think that's dangerous, because I think the initial move forward with regards to mental health has been, well, quite stunning. And I think it's been hugely beneficial to many, many people. But there are some people who feel that this is just a step too far. It's a way of allowing people to avoid their responsibilities, to avoid life, avoid living, because then they've got an excuse that they have a mental problem. And I think that's escaping the point, really, which is that I think a lot of people feel that suffering is necessary because it's part of being human. And I would argue that pain can be constructive for a short period of time, but continued, prolonged, unnecessary pain is hugely damaging. And so those who get tired of hearing about mental health, I think possibly don't really understand the massive, massive change that can take place in a person when they confront their issues, possibly for the first time in their lives. And sometimes it's I was going to say a painful experience. You sometimes have to open the wound to let it breathe, to look at it and see if there's anything necrotic going on and to see if there's further action required. And I'm talking both literal and metaphorically here. And so those who say that, we all need to just toughen up and, get some balls or something like that, especially with guys, I think they're missing the point a little bit, because our fathers, forefathers, uncles, aunts, grandpas, they all used to go and kill themselves when they couldn't deal with things, or they would just drink themselves into oblivion, or they would find a drug that somehow suited them. They would just disappear from society. We wouldn't see them again, at least not in any substantial way. But dealing with these things somehow, to some people, seems like an abrogation of our responsibility to deal with our shit. And I worry about that, because I think, in a way, it's part of our British nature. Do you not think?
To avoid it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, but you just have to look. We're going to have to stop soon. But you just have to look at the advertisements all over, what we get bombarded with, the subliminal message: drink your way through this, have a G&T, don't worry about it. This stuff, drink champagne. You've really made it. When you've made it, you're drinking champagne, you're doing all this stuff. No, when you really made it, you find beauty in the most simplest things. That's what really making it looks like. You're happy with simplistic life. You don't need a complicated, overly busy life, because there is enough in kind of slowing down to keep you happy. And I think that it's our culture. Queen Victoria, I'm going to rest that on her, the stiff upper lip business. And I agree. People, as always, take everything too far to the other extreme. So people do use that as an excuse to not participate in life and not do the work. Sadly, the work is part of our very soul existence. And if we don't do the work, we simply won't evolve to the next level. Yes, there are levels. And it's a personal choice. And that's what we're both saying, isn't it, Robin? We're saying there's a choice in this. And if you come to Robin, if you want to you suspect it could be your subconscious and you're not sure where it is, then you need to go and book in. And Robin, you do free 15-minute consultations, do you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
They can work with you. And do you want to give them, have you got a contact details?
Well, my website is robinferrier.co.uk, and you'll find all the information you need in terms of videos about ailments, videos about what is hypnotherapy, because not many people truly understand.
A lot of people are scared of it as well. They think you're going to take over their minds. They're like, I don't want to be hypnotized. He's going to take over. And it's like, no, that's not how it works.
Well, if I was that person, I would be driving a Maserati, probably own several banks, because all I'd do is I'd say, okay, now you're in my power. I want you to try and...
Oh, have we lost Robin? And that's with spirit, if I'm still here, saying you're not allowed to say things like that. Like a spirit, make sure that people can't hear things like that. I don't know if Robin's coming back, but we've got his details, and he isn't driving a Maserati, but he is available for free 15-minute consultations, as am I, if you would like me to help you with your pain journey. And it might be a combination of the two of us. So that is certainly something I put forward to people. So come get your chart done. Let me establish where the pain is in your body, and then use Robin to work out how you can basically reprogram that pain. I'll get him to help you reprogram it. That would be the way to do it. Anyway, thank you for listening. Totally lost Robin now. So I'm going to end this, and I hope it's been worth it for you. Take care.